Good day. Today we're going to talk a little bit about how to deal with drawing layouts in AutoCAD. And so I've already pre-created an object or a series of drawings here in the model area. And so it's a basic shed style drawing here. And the idea is to create three different layouts, one for each of the views. And that way we're able to control scaling and how the images print out. So at the bottom of your drawing environment, you've got the ability to create multiple layouts. And so we're going to go ahead and we've got layout 1, we'll hit the plus sign, get layout 2, and we'll get layout 3. You'll notice that when I click on each one of these layouts, they all look very similar because the scaling inside the layout is exactly the same. And so what we need to be able to do is control exactly what we're going to see and at what scale we're going to see it at. So a little bit about the layout itself. The layout is a WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get kind of uh, environment. What you're seeing right now is the paper, which is the white sheet, is 8.5 by 11. If I needed to change paper size, I could go in to the layout, right mouse click, and edit that particular page setup. And so if we went into the page setup manager, I could go into layout 1 and modify that. And when I modify it, it's basically asking about the specific layout and the paper size associated with it. And I've got a variety of different paper sizes that I can choose, both ANSI, architectural, and then oversize and ISO based paper sizing. So again, you've got a variety of different setups and layouts you can work with. Once you've selected your layout, we're not going to worry about scaling or anything. What we're dealing with here when we deal with page setup is the paper. So you're dealing specifically with the paper sizing and the orientation. And 9 times out of 10, the orientation is landscape, so it lays flat along the environment. And again, I can select layout 1, 2, or 3, and it'll tell me what my current paper size is when I select that particular page setup manager. So now we know how the paper is set up. The second component is the little dashed line that's around the outside edge. And the little dashed line around the outside edge is configured to your printer or plotter that you're using. And so that is the printable area of this paper. So in this case, we have a small offset where we're not able to print. Okay, so these are the margins, the unprintable margins around the outside of the paper edge. The blue, in this case it's blue because I've got it on a blue layer. It's typically a black line, solid all the way around. That is called the viewport, and so that's what we're actually able to see. And so this view window, okay, can be scaled or gripped or moved. It's just like any other rectangular object on your drawing, except it's on the layout sheet. Can we create more of these? Absolutely. Can I create one and then use the copy tools to accomplish that? Absolutely. So we can go over and copy, and we had it selected, and so now we want to go ahead and select a base point, and I can copy multiple layout windows. So each one of these layout windows, what's interesting about this, it's all independent. So I can have one image in this window and another image in this window and another image in this window, or a detail where I can magnify in each window. Now here's the other thing. I highly recommend that you take and place all these windows on a separate layer. And so right now they're on elevation side. I could put it on the title block or a viewport layer. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and move them to the viewport layer. And when they're moved to the viewport layer, you'll notice that the color did change black again. But I can also turn them on or off. So if I turn the viewport layer off, The images will stay, however, the boxes go away and will not be printed. So putting them on a separate layer so you can turn that layer off or make it a non-printing layer, which is also an option under the layer area. And either way will make your drawing look much more professional. So now that we know that this layout window can be copied or manipulated, how do we manipulate the specific drawing or images inside? Well, if you think about each one of these boxes being a window into the model, because remember the model has 3 different drawings on it. And so right now we're just seeing this one object. But on this layout, what I can do is move each one of these to a different view on that model, because each one of these is like a window or a hole that's cut that's looking at that model level drawing. So how do we manipulate inside each one of these particular windows? Well, we use the double click in, double click out method. If I double click in the window, you'll notice that the window turns very thick and it's highlighted. That means I'm actually working inside the window. You'll also notice that I get an XY icon inside the window, and I get the viewing capabilities or the view tools. If I hold the mouse button down or roll the mouse button, I can magnify and demagnify. If I hold the mouse button down, I can pan to other objects that might be in that model space. So you can kind of get the idea of how I can set up a top, front, right side drawing by drawing the views, having them separated, and then creating 3 separate viewports between each one of these. So in essence, each one of these can have a separate image inside the viewport. And all I do is double click in to make that manipulation. And you'll notice that each one is independent. So even though I move this image, this one stayed exactly in the same position. So again, what we're doing is using the pan tool inside the window. We're not physically changing the object. However, if I do physically change the object, it will update between these 2 windows. So for example, if I just draw a circle inside here, you'll notice that the circle is live dynamic being created in the other window. So any changes to the object will update in the layout windows. So we double clicked in. To get away from it, we double click out. So anywhere on the paper space, or it's even safer to double click out in the gray area around the drawing environment. Okay, so now again we can grip, drag, scale, double click in with the left mouse click, hold the wheel down and pan it around. And so we've got all these nice views that we've kind of laid out. However, we don't know what scale they're at. We have no idea what drawing scale they're currently at. So in this case, when we double click out, we're actually working on top of the drawing sheet. So that 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper that we were working on, we're literally drawing on top of that drawing sheet. Again, let me give you an example. Notice that the circle is covering the viewport boxes. If I work inside here, remember we created a circle inside, it dynamically changed or updated. If that was the case, I should see a portion of the circle inside here, and I don't. So when we're outside of the layout, we're actually drawing on top of the piece of paper. So these windows to our views have the ability to change and manipulate scale. So we double click in, and when we double click in on the bottom of our drawing environment, we have a scale factor for the viewport. These are also viewport tools down here that pop up for us. But we have a scale factor for the viewport, which is currently 0.012. Pretty small scale. So with that scale, okay, I'm probably going to start off, and I always like to start off with a small scale and work my way up to the scale that fits the best. So literally we're going to go 1/32 to a foot. Okay, so that's pretty darn small. But what it's nice is that I can now go back and go a 1/16 to a foot. Oh, it's getting better. 3/32, 1/8 inch to a foot. That looks pretty good right there. We'll give it one more shot at 3/16 to a foot. And then again, I can scroll down and we've got other scales. Or well, let's see, let's go to a 1/4 inch. 1/4 inch to a foot's too big. So now I've got to back it down. Will 3/16 be too big? Yeah, pretty much too big. So we're going to have to back it down to 1/8 inch equals a foot. So this scale for this window, the best scale is 1/8 inch equals a foot. Well, that may not be the case for here. When I double click in here, again, similar scale factor, I'll try the 1/8 inch equals a foot. That worked out pretty well. 3/16? Could I make this work by shifting the image over and having it fit? Absolutely. So this scale is 3/16 to a foot. And this one may be different altogether. So we'll try 3/16. That looks like that's going to be the winning scale here also. So there are also some tricks to alignment. So now that we have a scaling factor and the blue and the red side images of the object are both the same scale factor. Let me double click out of the viewport. So remember, we're working over the object right now. I'm going to draw a line. Now what's nice is that I can actually connect to the objects that are still inside, and we're going to draw a line across. Now why did I do that? Well, this line now represents the bottom of this object. So if I double click in here and I pan this down and line this up to the bottom line and double click out, when I draw the top line across, it should line up. And it does. I might be off just a little bit. Again, we can magnify and you can see that I'm off just a little bit here. So I can double click in. And level of accuracy. Can I snap it to this line? Can I use the move command and snap it? Not really. I can try, but I'm physically moving the object in here. And that's part of the drawback, is that I have to keep that same scale factor. The minute I roll my mouse, I've got a different scale factor in this window. And so now I've got to go back to double click in, 3/16 equals a foot. Lost the image. Now I've got to go find it. Bring it back up. Again, 3/16 equals a foot. And so, and then move it appropriately on the scaling. So the idea is that, oh, darn it, I just messed that up. That happens. Happens a lot because you inadvertently hit the double click out. But you can see that you can align the images working outside of the box and then creating the construction lines to help you for alignment purposes. If this box was the same scale and this drawing was the same scale, then we could align the walls also between the two drawing environments if they were both 3/16. And I could expand this box, and we can probably make the 3/16 work here also. I double click out. Oops, I'm in the middle of a command. Double click in, make this work. So the problem is that my dimension isn't going to line up. I'll have to move the blue, the actual viewport over to make that work and for alignment. So that wall aligns. And that's the idea, is that you can line up all the walls and line up all the elevations and make that oriented properly. Okay. So we talked about how we can control the different viewports. We can have different views in different viewports. So for example, With this, I can double click in and we can just do the front view of this object. And again, we can work on the scaling factor here. 1/2 inch equals a foot, a little bit big. So let's back it down. Instead of a 1/2 inch, we'll do 3/8. Perfect. Double click out. So we know that the scale on this drawing is 3/8 inch equals a foot. You can print this at a 1-to-1 scale. So when you actually go to print this, right mouse click, you'll actually go and hit the plot button. When you choose the plot, you'll have your plotter. You'll set your paper size. You're plotting the layout. Don't plot the image. Don't plot the window. Don't plot the display. You're plotting the layout. The scale's 1-to-1. Don't ever change the scale because the scale is based on the paper. It's based on your viewport. No need to change the scale. So you can plot the line weights, so that way you've got thicker and thinner lines that appear. But the whole idea behind this is that you set up the plot before you're actually going to plot it. So it's exactly what you're seeing on this piece of paper is exactly what's going to be plotted at the appropriate scale that you've set it at. That's the goal. All right, one last thing that I wanted to talk about, and that's about bringing in drawing templates. And so the idea about drawing templates is that I can create a title block and have a drawing template associated with a specific title block. So what I did is I created a drawing. I've got layout 1, layout 2, and then ANSI A and ANSI B. The whole idea is that I can create title blocks on my layouts, save the drawing, okay, saving the drawing. But the whole idea is that I could also save it as a drawing template. So you can create a title block as a template that you can then bring in and apply it on top of a layout. That way you're controlling exactly how your title block acts and reacts on the paper. You're not scaling the title block to try to fit the paper. You're not trying to everything is based on the layout and the scale of the paper. So when I brought in this title block, you'll also notice that I have a layout, a viewport. So this viewport is no different than what we were just working in the other drawing environment, except this happens to be a viewport that has a non-rectangular shape. So it's a unique shape. But the properties are exactly the same about this particular object. So I may shoot another video on how to actually create one of these templates, but it's really simple. Like I said, just draw on the layout, on a blank layout, just draw your title block or import it. This one actually happens to be a block. So it's a block reference that I brought in and drew. So again, using a block reference, you can just import or insert the block and make that work. One other thing I wanted to point out is that inside your title block, and again, we're double clicked out, so we're over the whole title block. What I did is I added a text field. And so I'm going to double click on the text field and we're going to edit the field. And so adding text fields allows us to create information. So I can use the date, I can use the creation date, or the plot date or the save date. Whatever I choose, I can make a date and time reference, and there's document and other object references. So scale factor of viewports could be utilized as the scaling. This particular object is set up to where I have to edit the scale and edit the sheet numbers. So the whole idea is that I can control, all right, so the creation date of the drawing is what's going to be in there, all right? Or I can use the exact today's date and put that in. So again, I can edit these fields. These are automatic that extracts data out of your drawing and then puts it into the title block for you automatically. All right, have a great day. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon at another video.